I was reading over the weekend and I kind of marked some stuff in the book, and it won't keep because it's on my mind. It'll be accompanied by a couple of poems. So I'm in the van, I'm at work. As I say, it won't keep. So I've got a couple of poems which I brought with me. I brought one of them with me anyway. And it kind of leads on from what I was talking about with the difference between Pan and Venus and Aphrodite. So with the covering of Venus, what can happen is you can discover. So you remove the cover, and when you remove the cover, you find the beauty. Whether you find love or not, I'm not sure whether you find love. But seeing as the motive force of the universe is love, the motive force of the universe is always the good and love, it stands to reason that you would discover love if you looked beneath the covering. So there's that one idea about discovering. And then so in the story how Pan gets a seat at the table of the Olympians, Hermes, his father, finds him as a foundling and realizes he's probably not acceptable because of his monstrous form, and he covers him in the skin of a hare. So this will lead to the first poem, which is do you know, I can't remember what it's called. It will come to me. Anyway, this poem's about it's about a hare that I found on the road, and it goes like this. It goes, gone, God, great Pan, the heart that heard the wailing of the lure, that mourns and mourns man's inhumanity to man, and the roadkill hare, her broken coracle body and pipgon ear. So the pipgon part of this is it's an old Welsh instrument, almost like the what is it? It's like a hunting horn that they use when they're fox hunting. Boop, 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 that one. It's like the original of that. And then if you look on the packet of butter, lure pack, it's a European thing. The lure actually refers to this old instrument called a lure, which was like a brass. It's a Bronze Age instrument, and I think it was brass, and it's fully cast. And so one of Pan's nymphs, the one that I couldn't remember from the last video, is called Syrinx, and Syrinx is I can't remember what's it called. It's Syrinx. Yeah, Syrinx. A Syrinx is that boar-headed, brass-cast Celtic war horn. That's a Syrinx, and it was one of the nymphs of I might not have got the spelling. I'll put the spelling in the description. So the two different Syrinx and Syrinx, I think it's called. Anyway, so there are two types of horn. Anyway, the pibcon is an old Welsh name for a horn. So it got me thinking about ancestors. At the moment, I'm working on a Japanese garden, so I had a look into Shinto, which is the Japanese ancestral religion, and I think it's quite a sane thing to do, is to sort of evoke the ancestors. So rather than have all those hang-ups of just mother and father, the Japanese tend to see themselves as more of a scion of a branch of an ancestry. So not just their parents, the son or daughter of their parents, but the son and daughter of their parents' parents, and their parents' parents. So a long line of people stretching back. And this tends to be, it's a less of a hang-up. You can see that, okay, so if you have a problem with one particular savage sibling, say, or mother, or drunken father, or something like that, you can say, oh, that's just part of the family tree. That's just one branch of the family tree. So this ancestral musical instrument, the pibgon, kind of leads into that thinking. And I'll have a poem which invokes my ancestors, and I'll stick that. It'll be the next one I'll do. Anyway, so the things that I was covering, that I read about at the weekend, so I just wanted to stick this in with the Pan story, is one of the things about panic is your paranoid systems aren't fully functioning if you panic. So panic obviates paranoid thinking, which means that your critical thinking isn't working if you panic. If you're easily given to panic, you won't be thinking critically. Now, you can bring in, if in a sort of descent, say, into the underworld or depression, you can say, well, why is this happening to me? It must be karma. But if you think about it, karma is like an Eastern idea. There's already a Western idea that can mitigate for this karmic, can't do anything about it, it's karma type thinking. You don't have to accept this Eastern way of thinking. You can learn about the Western roots of things. So the Western roots would be Greek civilization, Greek thinking, Greek archetypes. It doesn't matter if you're Estonian or Jamaican. If you live in a Western culture like we all do at the moment, then the archetypes that you're going to come across are going to be Western archetypes. So it's as good to be informed about that as anything else. So so your critical thinking is not going to be operating if you're given to panic. Further, when paranoid systems of thinking go into dissolution, panic arises. So paranoid thinking doesn't mean, oh, they're all out to get me. What it means is there's something not right with this. This doesn't sit right with me. So if you think about the pandemic, there's a joke in there. It's dem panic, Dem panic. That's what they're doing. They're panicking. So as they panic, they're not thinking about it critically. There's a lot in the Pan archetype, compulsion and inhibition. Anyway, so I'll go to the things that I did mark. So it says, talking about the mercurial element of Pan's background, this places Pan within a specific configuration. First, enwrapped in the skin of a hare, an animal particularly sacred to Aphrodite, Eros, and the Bacchic world, and the moon implies his investment with those associations. His initial garment means his initiation into their universe. He has been adopted by those structures of consciousness. Second, Hermes is his patron, giving hermetic aspects to Pan's actions. They can be examined for messengers. They are modes of communications, connections which mean something. Third, Dionysus' delight expresses the sympathy between them. These gods provide an archetypal cluster into which Pan fits, and where we most expect to find him. So this is like an introduction to him. I mean, there's some things in Pan that you'll find When Pan is alive, then nature is too, and is filled with the gods, so that the owl's hoot is Athene, the mollusk on the shore is Aphrodite. These bits of nature are not merely attributes or belongings, they are the gods in their biological form. And where better to find the gods than in things, places, animals that they inhabit, and how better to participate in them than through their concrete natural presentations. Whatever is eaten, smelled, walked upon, or watched, all were sensuous presences of archetypal significance. So, looking at things psychologically doesn't mean that you're investing that in a moralistic or ethical. That belongs to law, society, religion. What you're trying to do, some of the things that Pan expresses, like rape, masturbation, these have been verboten to the Christian world. It means that they have no purpose. They don't serve any useful. Masturbation doesn't serve a useful procreative purpose. So what is its purpose? What is its meaning? What does it mean? It might not mean anything out there, but it might mean something in here, and in here it might be worth looking at what that kind of thing means. So there are two that belong to Pan: masturbation and rape. And it's not repression like libido damning. If we take the evidence that Russia cites of Pan's terror to be a form of psychic infection attacking both man and animals, then we would seem to have an archetypal event that transcends the only human psyche, there placing the nightmare panic in a profound realm of instinctual experience, which man shares at least with animals. With trees, stones, the cosmos at large, this sharing remains a speculation. If panic in animals is not substantially different to panic in man, and if panic is the root of nightmare, then the hypothesis is enough, for even the boldest Freudian has not extended universality of fear in the universe beyond the sheep to the shepherd. So it's talking about Pan and fear now. Fear is an instinctual pattern of behaviour, the wisdom of the body. To use Cannon's phrase, it provides a connection or a bridge with nature, equal to hunger, sexuality or aggression. Fear, like love, can become a call to consciousness. One meets the unconscious, the unknown, the numinous, and the uncontrollable by keeping in touch with fear, which alleviates the blind instinctual panic of the sheep into the knowing, cunning awe of the fearful shepherd. Any complex that brings about panic has not been integrated into the construction and should not be. Therefore, any complex that brings about panic is the via regia, the royal road, for dismantling paranoid defences. Critical thinking. So if you can cause panic, you'll stop people thinking critically. It leads out of the city and into the open country of Pan. So these are the things I marked. You shouldn't integrate. It shouldn't be integrated, the panic mechanism, because you'll stop your critical thinking. And then there's a little bit, we'll probably cover this again, it's a bit about fantasy and behaviour being fantasy, and consciousness not informing behaviour. More often than not, you'll behave and you'll think, why did I do that? It's because you're carrying around a fantasy all the time, and it's not the fantasy that's informing the behaviour is informing the fantasy in a way. Moral criteria for behaviour belong to ethics, law and religion, but these fields should not influence the perspectives of psychopathology. There is pathos and logos in psychopathology. Pathos, logos in psyche, whose judgments concerning behaviour are determined less by what, where and with whom actions take place, this is referring to rape actually, than how, less the act than its quality. And he kind of, this is James Hillman's book, so it's this one. It's called Pan and the Nightmare. It's by James Hillman. And he talks about the rape in the alleyway being much more in touch with the archetype than the sort of rites of spring, new age, man or women workshop type dancing, to invoke Pan, so the actual act is something psychological, means something psychologically, and shouldn't be dismissed just because it's verboten. And then I'll just finish this with the last poem about instinct, and this one's called Acting on Instinct. It's a recent one. I wrote it on Sunday. So it goes like this. Known now, ever and ever owl, daughter of a felled ash, in her maiden flight sees the paths, empty paths half light, lord of mice, the moon in a pail of water,